Welcome to American Agenda. I'm Bob Sellers with Heather Childers. Tennessee is the latest state to ban critical race theory from being taught in public schools there. It's a theory that racism has been baked in, if you will, into our nation's foundations and legal systems. Multiple other states are also introducing similar bills to outlaw the teaching of CRT. Joining us now to discuss, Republican candidate in Pennsylvania for the United States Senate and author of the book, Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, Kathy Barnette. Kathy, thank you, sir, for joining us. What's your take on critical race theory? Why is this a harmful thing for students to be taught?
Yeah, well, bravo to those states that are wising up to what's really going on in our nation. You know, I've been listening to your show as I do every day, and I'm listening to the various topics that you're talking about. One of the things we have to get our mind wrapped around is that all of these things that we're experiencing today, they're not happening in happening in isolation. They're all interconnected. Whether we talk about, what is taking place in our school systems with critical race theory, or whether we're talking about what's happening on the streets with the violence between Arabs and Jews, or whether we're talking about what's happening at our border, then the emotional blackmail that is being used. The foundation of all of it, critical race theory to Black Lives Matter, rioting in the streets, and all of that is Marxism. Now, what is Marxism? Your audience would know that Marxism, of the past was based on worker-based ideologies or differences, where you had the differences between those who worked on the assembly line versus those who owned the assembly lines. Well, today they removed the word worker and they replace it with identity. So what CRT is founded upon, just like a little bit of everything else we're contending with in our culture today, is identity-based Marxism. And what is the goal of Marxism? Always, it is to agitate. And why do they want to agitate? Because if I can divide you, I can control you. If I can keep you focused on all the nebulous differences ad nauseum, then I can overthrow. And that is the point, the ultimate end game of Marxism. Marxism does not come into a country in order to improve that country. Marxism comes into a country in all of its many forms in order to overthrow that country. Look at what happened when Marxism went into Russia. They're now communists. Marxism goes into China. They're now communists. Marxism goes into Cuba, Venezuela. They're now communists. This does not end well for us.
Yeah, Kathy, I spoke with Congressman Burgess Owens over the weekend. Hopefully we're not losing you there, Kathy, but he has introduced two different bills to counter the Biden administration rolling back the Trump-era policies that were put in place to ban critical race theory in federal workplaces. Whose ultimate responsibility is it to get this under control?
You know what? Absolutely. I mean, again, bravo to those of us who are not jumping into the pool of critical race theory and allowing ourselves to be emotionally blackmailed by these bullies all throughout our country, and teach the youngest of our citizens this very evil ideology. So bravo to people like Congressman Burgess Owens and others, state legislators who are rising to the call. Again, there is no pot of gold at the end of critical race theory. None of that happens here. And when you jump into it, you have to understand my story only takes place in America. And what critical race theory is going to do, it is going to demolish this concept of the American dream. It's going to demolish this concept of capitalism. Because what it does, it says everything must be undone. Everything must be unraveled. There is hatred and evil at the core of every single system. That is the ideology. And right now, this ideology of critical race theory, or really identity-based Marxism, it is now the lens through which the overwhelming majority of our institutions are looking at the foundations of those institutions, whether you're talking about in our government, whether you're talking about in the military, whether you're talking about it in universities, or whether you're looking at our schools with K through 12. It is the lens through which they are now looking at everything, even corporate America. And that lens is colored with racism, division. You know, the previous administration had a saying, make America great again. Critical race theory will make America racist again. They are churning out little racists, and people need to realize it and get engaged on this topic.
Kathy, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Kathy Barnette.
Thanks, Kathy.
Coming up, race baiting rhetoric. Democrats are continuing their attacks on voter ID.